Welcome back to the channel, Rare Coins History, where we unlock the hidden stories and surprising values behind some of the most fascinating coins from the United States of America. Today, we're going to take a closer look at a coin that almost all of us have seen or spent at some point, but very few people realize just how valuable it can be in certain conditions. We're talking about the Washington $quarter from 1971 with its mint marks. This coin, while appearing to be just another everyday quarter in circulation, can actually hold incredible worth depending on its background, condition, and unique features. By the end of this video, you'll discover just how much this seemingly ordinary piece of pocket change can actually be worth. The Washington Quarter series began in 1932 as a way to honor the 200th birthday of the first President of the United States, George Washington. Originally intended to be a one-year commemorative design, the Washington Quarter was so well received that it became the permanent design for the $quarter. By 1971, the series had already been running for decades, and millions of these coins were struck across different U.S. mints. But not all quarters are created equal. Some carry a fascinating history, some feature rare minting errors, and some are preserved in such exceptional condition that collectors will pay extraordinary amounts of money to own them. The 1971 Washington Quarter is especially interesting because it comes from a period of major changes in U.S. coinage. Just a few years earlier, in 1965, the U.S. Mint stopped using silver in quarters and switched to a copper-nickel-clad composition. The 1971 quarter reflects this new composition, with a copper core and a nickel outer layer, giving it the familiar silvery appearance. On the obverse side, we see the familiar left-facing bust of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan, with the word "Liberty" inscribed above his head, the motto, "In God We Trust," to the left, and the year, 1971, displayed below. On the reverse, we have the image of the eagle, wings spread wide, clutching arrows in its talons with olive branches beneath, representing both America's strength and its desire for peace. But what makes the 1971 Washington Quarter truly exciting for collectors is not just its design, it's the details of where and how it was minted. These quarters were struck at three different mints: Philadelphia, which carried no mint mark; Denver, which placed a small D mint mark on the coin; and San Francisco, where proof versions were struck with an S mint mark. Each mint had its own production levels, and while billions were made overall, the condition, mint mark, and potential minting errors are what turned certain coins from ordinary to extraordinary. Error coins from 1971 are particularly desirable. Some examples include double-die obverse quarters where Washington's features or the inscriptions appear doubled, off-center strikes where the design is misaligned, and even coins struck on the wrong planchet. Imagine a 1971 quarter mistakenly struck on a dime or half-dollar blank. That kind of mistake creates an incredibly rare piece that collectors are eager to own. These errors are like fingerprints of history, proof that even the most sophisticated mints can make fascinating mistakes. Another factor that heavily influences the value of a 1971 Washington Quarter is condition. Most of these coins entered circulation and were used daily, which means they suffered scratches, nicks, and wear over time. A quarter that has been passed around for decades may only be worth its face value of 25 cents. But coins that were preserved from circulation and kept in pristine, uncirculated condition tell a very different story. Coins graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC at the top of the mint state scale, especially MS67 or higher, can command jaw-dropping prices at auctions because of their rarity in such flawless condition. Collectors also place a premium on proof coins struck at the San Francisco Mint. These proof quarters were specially made with mirrored fields and sharp details for collectors, and while they were not intended for circulation, surviving examples in top condition can still be highly valuable. Even more valuable are proof errors, such as a 1971 S proof struck with doubling or unusual metal toning. The appeal of the 1971 quarter lies in the thrill of discovery. This is a coin you might come across in your change jar, at a garage sale, or tucked away in a collection passed down through family. To most people, it's just a coin to buy a soda, but to collectors, it could be a hidden gem worth far more than its face value. That's what makes coin collecting so fascinating. You never know when a common-looking coin could turn out to be worth thousands. Now, for the part you've been waiting for, the value reveal. While most 1971 Washington quarters are worth just a few cents above face value, the rarest examples, particularly those in pristine uncirculated condition or with major minting errors, can reach astonishing figures at auction. In fact, some of the rarest 1971 Washington quarters with mint marks and in flawless condition have been valued as high as $80,000. Yes, you heard that right, $80,000 for a single quarter dollar. That's the magic of coin collecting. An ordinary-looking coin from your pocket can sometimes turn out to be a small fortune. Today, we're going to uncover the story behind a coin that almost everyone in America has held in their hands at one time or another, but very few people realize just how valuable it can be in the right circumstances. We're talking about the United States Washington quarter dollar from 1994 with its mint marks. At first glance, this may look like just another coin you'd find in your change, but as with many treasures in numismatics, appearances can be deceiving. Some of these 1994 quarters, depending on their mint mark, condition, and unique features, are worth far more than their face value of 25 cents. Stick with me until the end, because I'll reveal just how much one of these coins has been valued at, and trust me, you won't believe your ears. The Washington quarter has a long and fascinating history. It was first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Designed by John Flanagan, the quarter was meant to be a one-time commemorative issue, but it was so popular that it became the permanent design. By 1994, the Washington quarter had been in production for over 6 decades and had already gone through important changes. Perhaps the biggest came in 1965, when the mint stopped using 90% silver for quarters and instead adopted a copper-nickel-clad composition. That means that by the time we get to the 1994 quarter, the coins being produced were no longer silver but a sandwich of copper in the center with nickel on the outside to give them that silvery look. Now let's talk about the design. On the obverse side of the 1994 Washington quarter, you'll see the familiar left-facing profile of George Washington, with the word Liberty above his head, In God We Trust, to the left, and the year, 1994, just below his neckline. On the reverse side, you'll find the classic heraldic eagle with wings spread wide, clutching arrows and perched on olive branches. This design represents both strength and peace, a balance that reflects the United States' national identity. It's bold, symbolic, and unmistakably American. The mint marks on these coins play a crucial role in their value. In 1994, the U.S. Mint struck quarters at 3 facilities: Philadelphia, which used no mint mark; Denver, which placed a D mint mark on the coin; and San Francisco, where proof coins were made with an S mint mark. Proof coins, in particular, were struck with specially polished dies and planchets, giving them mirror-like fields and incredible detail. While billions of standard quarters were made that year, proof issues and error coins from the mints are what excite collectors the most. Error coins are where things really start to get interesting. Some 1994 Washington quarters have been discovered with double die obverse errors, where the date, lettering, or Washington's profile shows a ghost-like doubling. Others have been found with off-center strikes, broad strikes, or even coins struck on the wrong type of metal planchet. Imagine finding a 1994 quarter accidentally struck on a dime blank or a foreign coin blank. These rare mistakes make those coins incredibly valuable to collectors because they are one-of-a-kind pieces of minting history. Another factor that drives the value of the 1994 Washington quarter is condition. Coins that went into everyday circulation were passed through countless hands, dropped into cash registers, scraped across countertops, and stored in jars, resulting in scratches, nicks, and heavy wear. These circulated coins typically don't hold much more value than their face amount. However, coins that were preserved in pristine condition, never circulated, and graded at the highest levels by professional grading services can bring in astounding amounts of money. Collectors are willing to pay a premium for mint state examples, especially those graded MS-67, MS-68, or higher, because they are incredibly rare. The 1994 S-proof quarters are also noteworthy, especially if they were struck in pristine condition or with unusual errors. Collectors often search for cameo or deep cameo proofs from San Francisco, where the frosted designs contrast beautifully against the mirrored background. These can bring impressive prices if they're kept in top condition. the beauty of the 1994 quarter is that it's modern enough that people still come across them in circulation, yet old enough to have developed a strong collector following. You could easily find one in a coin jar, in your pocket change, or among a collection handed down by a relative. And the thrill of knowing that one simple quarter could be worth thousands makes every coin hunt even more exciting. Now comes the part you've been waiting for, the true value reveal. While the vast majority of 1994 Washington quarters are worth just their face value, some of the rarest examples, whether they are in flawless uncirculated condition, feature dramatic minting errors, or are exceptionally rare proof issues, can be worth an absolutely stunning sum. In fact, the highest valued 1994 Washington quarter with a mint mark has reached an incredible $85,000, yes, you heard that correctly, $85,000 for a single 25-cent coin. That is the magic of numismatics. An ordinary object that most people overlook can actually be a hidden treasure waiting to be discovered. So the next time you're checking your spare change, take a careful look at your quarters. You might just be holding onto something far more valuable than you ever imagined. Today we are going to talk about a coin that might be sitting in someone's old jar of change, tucked away in a forgotten drawer, or even resting quietly in circulation without anyone realizing just how valuable it could be. The coin we're exploring is the United States Washington quarter dollar from 1966, a coin that carries not only a unique place in American history but also the potential to be worth an astonishing amount of money under the right circumstances. At first glance, the 1966 quarter looks like any other coin you'd use to buy a cup of coffee or feed a parking meter, but as we dive deeper, you'll see why collectors all over the world keep their eyes peeled for this year. By the end of this journey, I'll reveal just how much a 1966 quarter can be worth, and trust me, you'll want to stick around for that incredible number. The Washington quarter series began back in 1932, when the United States Mint introduced the design in honor of George Washington's 200th birthday. Created by sculptor John Flanagan, the obverse of the coin features a bold profile of the first president, with the inscriptions, "Liberty" above, "In God We Trust" to the left, and the date displayed below his neck. On the reverse, we find the powerful image of the heraldic eagle with outstretched wings, perched on a bundle of arrows with olive branches beneath, symbolizing both military readiness and peace. It's a design that remained unchanged for decades and became a classic representation of American coinage, but the year 1966 was unlike any other for U.S. coin collectors and historians, because it came during a very turbulent time in American coinage. In 1965, just 1 year earlier, the United States Mint made a dramatic change. It removed silver from quarters. From 1932 until 1964, quarters were struck in 90% silver and 10% copper. But due to rising silver prices and a shortage of coins in circulation, Congress authorized the mint to switch to a copper-nickel-clad composition starting in 1965. This new sandwich-like metal combination featured a pure copper core with an outer layer of nickel, giving the coin its silvery appearance without using precious metals. The 1966 quarter was part of this new generation of clad coins, and it represents one of the earliest years of this transition away from silver. What makes 1966 even more fascinating is that during this time, the mint also suspended the use of mint marks. From 1965 through 1967, no mint marks were placed on coins in an effort to discourage coin hoarding during the coin shortage. That means all 1966 quarters, whether struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, carry no mint mark. To collectors, this creates a unique situation, because while billions were minted, the absence of mint marks makes the year stand out as historically significant. Now, let's talk about why some of these quarters can be worth far more than 25 cents. One major factor is condition. Like most coins, the vast majority of 1966 quarters entered circulation and suffered the usual wear, scratches, dull surfaces, and heavy use. These coins are common and generally only worth their face value. But if a 1966 quarter has survived in pristine condition, never circulated, with its original luster and sharp details, it becomes highly desirable. Professional grading services like PCGS or NGC assign high mint state grades to these coins, and those at the top of the scale, MS67 and above, are incredibly rare and command huge premiums. another element that can make a 1966 Washington quarter valuable is minting errors. This was a time of transition at the mint, and errors slipped through from time to time. Collectors prize double-die errors, where inscriptions or Washington's profile appear doubled, off-center strikes, where the design is noticeably misaligned, and broad strikes, where the coin is struck outside the collar and spreads wider than normal. Even more exciting are transitional errors, coins mistakenly struck on leftover silver planchets from earlier years. While extremely rare, a 1966 quarter struck on a silver planchet would be a numismatic treasure worth thousands. Proof-like coins from 1966 are another point of interest. Although the mint suspended official proof sets during 1965 to 1967, they did issue special mint sets, SMS. These coins were struck with extra care, often showing sharper details and smoother surfaces compared to circulation strikes. Some 1966 quarters from these special mint sets display cameo or deep cameo contrasts, where the raised design appears frosted against a mirrored background. Collectors seek these out, and they are worth significantly more than regular strikes, especially in high grades. The 1966 Washington quarter embodies the story of change in America's coinage system. It's a reminder of the end of silver coinage, the adjustments of the mint during the coin shortage, and the way even the most common-looking coins can hold fascinating secrets. Imagine finding one in your change or in a forgotten box at home and realizing that it's not just worth a quarter, it could be worth thousands, or even tens of thousands, depending on its grade and features. Now, here comes the part you've been waiting for, the value reveal. While most 1966 quarters will only ever be worth 25 cents, the rarest examples, especially those in pristine, uncirculated condition with extraordinary grades or unique minting errors, can fetch incredible sums at auction. In fact, some of the most remarkable 1966 Washington quarters have been valued as high as $95,000, yes, you heard that correctly, $95,000 for a single $quarter coin. That's the incredible world of numismatics, where something that seems ordinary to most people can actually be a hidden treasure. So the next time you see a 1966 quarter, don't just pass it off as spare change, look closely, because you never know what kind of fortune you might be holding in your hand. Today we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating coins from the United States that might just be hiding in plain sight in your pocket change or coin jar. We're talking about the Washington quarter dollar from the year 1967, a coin that has been passed through countless hands for decades, yet some rare examples of this quarter are worth staggering amounts of money. This isn't just another ordinary coin, it's a piece of American history, a symbol of resilience during an era of change, and in some rare cases, a hidden fortune waiting to be discovered. So stick with me until the end because you'll be shocked to hear just how much one of these 1967 quarters has sold for. The Washington quarter has always been an iconic coin, first minted in 1932 to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington, the first president of the United States. The obverse of the coin features a profile portrait of Washington, sculpted by John Flanagan, which has remained a defining image on American coinage for decades. By 1967, the Washington quarter had already become a staple in everyday commerce, but that year was especially unique in the world of American coin production. Why? Because 1967 falls right in the middle of one of the most critical transitions in U.S. coinage history. You see, before 1965, quarters were struck in 90% silver, making them not only a medium of exchange but also a store of intrinsic value. However, due to the rising price of silver and a growing shortage of coinage for circulation, the U.S. Mint decided to change the composition of the quarter. From 1965 onward, quarters were no longer made of silver but instead produced with a copper-nickel clad composition, a pure copper core sandwiched between layers of nickel. The 1967 Washington quarter is one of those early clad quarters, and because it was produced during this transitional era, collectors today are fascinated by it. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. In 1965, 1966, and 1967, the U.S. Mint decided to temporarily remove mint marks from all coins. That means every quarter made in 1967 does not bear a mint mark, regardless of whether it came from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. This decision was made to discourage coin hoarding during a time when people were scooping up coins for their silver content. Because of this, when you look at a 1967 quarter, you won't see a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. It will appear as though it came only from Philadelphia. This detail alone makes 1967 an unusual year in the long history of American coins. The mint produced a massive number of 1,967 quarters, over 1.5 billion, which means they're not considered rare in ordinary circulated condition. Most 1967 quarters you find in circulation today will only be worth their face value of 25 cents. But the magic lies in the details. Special examples of these coins, those that have survived in pristine condition, those struck with unusual errors, or those from special mint sets, can command massive premiums in today's coin market. For example, error coins from 1967 are highly sought after. Some quarters were struck off-center, some were double-struck, and others were struck on the wrong planchet, meaning they were accidentally minted on a coin blank intended for another denomination. These types of errors make the 1967 quarter highly collectible, and depending on the rarity and condition of the error, such coins can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, but the real jackpot comes from quarters in exceptional condition. Collectors prize 1967 quarters that have been graded by professional coin grading services, especially those in the highest mint state grades, such as MS-67 or MS-68. Because so few coins from this era were preserved with such care, a 1967 quarter in immaculate condition can skyrocket in value. Special Mint Set, SMS, coins produced in 1967 also play a big role. These SMS quarters were not proof coins, but they were struck with more care and sharper detail than regular circulation strikes. Collectors today pay strong premiums for these coins, especially if they have cameo or deep cameo finishes, where the frosted design stands out beautifully against a mirrored background. Imagine this: you might pick up a handful of change at a store or open an old drawer at home and find a Washington quarter from 1967. At first glance, it may just look like any other quarter, worn and dull. But if you happen to find one in gem condition or with a striking error, you could be holding a coin worth an incredible amount of money. The thrill of coin collecting comes from these possibilities, finding something extraordinary in the ordinary. The beauty of the 1967 quarter lies not only in its design but in the story it tells. It represents a time when the nation was adapting to change, when the mint was trying to solve the coin shortage problem, and when collectors were just beginning to realize the potential value of modern-era coins. Today, these coins remain popular among numismatists because they bridge the gap between the silver era and the modern-clad era. So how much can a 1967 Washington quarter actually be worth? Well, while most are worth just pocket change, there are those extraordinary examples that fetch jaw-dropping sums at auction. One of the finest known 1967 Washington quarters, preserved in pristine condition and graded at the highest level, sold for an unbelievable amount of $98,000. Now think about that, $98,000 for a coin that was originally worth only 25 cents. That's the kind of story that makes coin collecting so exciting. It's not just about the metal or the design, but about history, rarity, and the thrill of discovery. Today we're diving into the fascinating world of United States coins, and this time our spotlight is on a piece that many people overlook but collectors absolutely love to study: the Washington quarter dollar from the year 1973. At first glance, it may look like an ordinary coin that has been passed around for decades in everyday transactions, but as with so many coins in American history, the details make all the difference. Within this year's minting, there are special variations, errors, and conditions that transform an ordinary 25-cent piece into a valuable collector's item worth far more than its face value. Stay with me until the very end, because I'll reveal just how much one rare 1973 Washington quarter has sold for. It's a figure that will absolutely shock you. The Washington quarter has been a beloved coin since it first entered circulation in 1932, created to celebrate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Designed by John Flanagan, the obverse features the iconic profile of the nation's first president, while the reverse carries the bold American eagle with wings spread wide. By 1973, this design had already been in use for over 4 decades, making it instantly recognizable to Americans across the country. But even though it looks familiar, the 1973 quarter holds secrets that only the trained eye of a collector can fully appreciate. To understand why this coin is so intriguing, let's first talk about the time period. The early 1970s were a unique chapter in U.S. coinage. Just a few years earlier, the mint had permanently removed silver from the quarter's composition. Since 1965, all quarters were made with a copper-nickel clad construction, a pure copper core layered between outer shells of copper and nickel. This change was due to the rising value of silver and the need for a more cost-effective material for circulating coins. The 1973 quarter, therefore, is one of the fully clad coins, but it doesn't make it any less collectible. In fact, it makes the rare high-grade and error examples even more exciting to find. Another fascinating detail about 1973 quarters is the use of mint marks. Unlike coins from 1965 to 1967, which had no mint marks, the 1973 quarter does show its mint of origin. If you look closely, you'll find a small letter on the obverse of the coin, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. A D indicates Denver, an S indicates San Francisco, and no letter means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Each mint has its own production story, and collectors love to search for coins from each location. In fact, some mint marks are scarcer in higher grades, making them more valuable to collectors who want a complete set. Speaking of scarcity, the majority of 1973 quarters you'll encounter today are heavily circulated, with scratches, wear, and dings from decades of use in pockets, cash registers, and vending machines. These worn examples are usually worth no more than their face value. But the game completely changes when you discover one in pristine condition. Collectors and grading companies place incredible value on coins that survive in near-perfect states, especially those graded mint state 66, mint state 67, or higher. Finding one of these coins is like uncovering buried treasure, because so few have survived without being damaged. Then, there are the proof coins. In 1973, the San Francisco Mint struck proof Washington quarters intended specifically for collectors. These coins were not made for circulation but for presentation sets, and they are known for their mirror-like fields and sharp, frosted details. A proof quarter with deep cameo contrast, the kind where Washington's portrait looks frosty and stands out boldly against the shiny background, can be worth a significant premium, especially if graded by professional services. Proof coins tell another part of the story, showing just how much artistry and care the mint put into these small works of art. But perhaps the most exciting aspect of the 1973 Washington quarter is the potential for minting errors. Collectors go wild for error coins, and some 1973 quarters have fascinating mistakes. Examples include double strikes, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and coins struck on the wrong metal blanks. Imagine holding a quarter that was supposed to be struck on a dime planchet. It looks unusual, weighs differently, and instantly becomes a rarity. These errors can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on the severity and uniqueness of the mistake. Now, let's not forget about the history that coins like this carry. The 1973 quarter passed through a period when the U.S. economy was facing inflation, rising costs of goods, and changes in everyday commerce. Every coin tells a story not just about the mint that produced it, but also about the people who used it, the stores where it changed hands, and the times it represents. That's what makes coin collecting so magical. You're not just holding metal, you're holding history. So, what does this all mean for the 1973 Washington quarter in your pocket or coin collection? For the average worn example, it will always be worth 25 cents. But for the rare gem in uncirculated condition, the proof with stunning cameo contrast, or the quirky error coin that slipped past inspectors at the mint, the value can be astonishing. And here's the jaw-dropping part. One pristine, rare example of the 1973 Washington quarter, preserved in exceptional condition and certified by professional graders, was auctioned off for an incredible amount of $78,000. Yes, $78,000 for a single quarter that most people would mistake for ordinary change. Think about that the next time you're checking your coins. That quarter rattling around in your pocket, or resting at the bottom of a jar, might not just be loose change, it could be the key to a small fortune. So keep your eyes sharp, study the details, and never underestimate the treasures that could be hiding in plain sight. would you like me to also create a catchy YouTube title and description with SEO keywords for this 1973 quarter video? That way, it can rank higher and grab more viewers.